Good afternoon. The topic today is about the emerging markets of China and working in the environment of China as it relates to production. And I want to start out with Jake. If you can talk about your involvement as it relates to China.
Okay, well, China's a really interesting market. Obviously, there's a lot of money in China now. There's actually a lot of US dollars, physical US dollars in China. And there's a lot of new high net worths who are buying into lots of things, be it wine or cognacs a few years ago, now fine wines, but also film. And there are 3 or 4 very powerful film groups that now want to really export product. And at the same time, you've got a very vibrant Hong Kong film industry that's always been very vibrant, and is now becoming much more part of China, and ever since the handover in '97, has become considerably more Chinese. The Hong Kong film industry was self-sustaining. You know, Jackie Chan would make 2 or 3 films that wouldn't even travel until he did Rumble in the Bronx, which would do very well in Hong Kong. China has that, and China now has the infrastructure, and it has its own stars, which are now box office overseas. So it's very, very exciting. And from our point of view, what we're getting, and we're seeing a lot of, is requests to do informal co-productions between Louisiana and China, because in Louisiana, anybody attracts the tax credit, wherever they come from. So when we fly them in, everything that we do there, the above the line, which is now very expensive, your Chow Yun Fats, your Donnie Yen's, etc., Lao Dakwa, these are expensive names, these are expensive talent. And in China, there's no rebate, there's no incentive like that. But in Louisiana, you're going to get 30 cents on the dollar. So it's very exciting for Chinese companies to look. And Chinese companies are now opening the horizons for everyone to talk. And they want to make things that have got a universal appeal. And conversely, we all want to get into China because now the box office in China is extraordinary. Right. You know, it's rapidly becoming.
Years, it's going to probably be greater than the United States.
Absolutely, it's rapidly becoming one of the #1 foreign territories for international projects if you can get through the quota and get your film in there.
Yeah, I last October, actually October of 2012, I had the pleasure of signing with private investors a memorandum of $200 million of private dollars for co-productions with the United States and China. So I look at China as being a market that we all in the film industry have to really look at to do business. Could you tell us a little about yourself and your company and the film projects that you've done and plan to do in China?
Sure. My name is Bill Borden. I'm a film producer, and I've been working in China for about 9 years. I started there working with Jackie Chan in The Medallion in Hong Kong. And then living and working in Hong Kong, I met a filmmaker named Stephen Chow. And we developed a project called Kung Fu Hustle, and we made that one. And it was successful both in China and around the world. And from that, we did that in Shanghai. He was a Hong Kong filmmaker, but basically he works in China now because of the market. Then we did, I was a producer on Mission Impossible 3, and we shot in Europe, and then we shot in China, which was a really big deal because it was a movie filled with action and violence and crime, and we made it in China.
Part of that when it showed in China?
I don't think the print was changed in China.
No?
No, they approved of the screenplay. We got stamp of approval. We got through censorship. And if it was, I didn't know it.
Yeah, okay.
So they could have, but it could have happened without knowing it. And then after that, I created a series of pictures called High School Musical, Disney's High School Musical. So we made a bunch of them in the United States. We did them overseas, and then we did one in China. Yeah, we all did them all in Utah.
Yeah.
So then we did one in China, High School Musical in China. And then from there, I made an association with a company now called Millie, which means 1 grain of rice. And Millie is a family movie company that wants to make animated product for overseas production, overseas distribution. So all our scripts are developed in English. They're all developed to make basically 100% in China, and then to be distributed in China and around the world. And we start by, because you're making them in China, it's not even a co-production, it's a Chinese production. So we get all the preferred rates in China. We don't have any problem with really censorship because they're all family. The ones we're going for right now are all family movies, so there's no issue with that. And we went through venture capitalists and capital, and we've been funded. So we fund ourselves now. We fund all our own movies. We don't look for co-productions because we don't need to. And we're making movies. We just had our first one. We showed it here, and Aymeric is representing us in around the world, outside of China, outside of Asia, to sell the movie. And
the film was shot in China?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an animated movie, so it is 100% shot in China.
And the title of it?
It's called Dragon Nest. Dragon Nest is a online game, and it has a subscription base of about 100 million people, of which about 75 million are in China and Asia, and about 25 million around the world.
That's so unique in China. It's the same with TV shows. A big TV show in America, 60, 70 million.
100 million in China.
And the rest.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
And it's going up.
And that's only the one who are registered, because the game can be played for free, so it's probably around 200 to 250 million players.
Yeah, there was a TV. I met with a producer the other day in Shanghai, and I said, "How many people watch your show on a week?" She said, "Oh, I think about 120 million." You go, really? That's not bad.
And 2 Super Bowls combined doesn't get there.
120 million a week.
But you talked about games and a built-in audience. We last night heard about a film that also has gamers that is a built-in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Street Fighter. And Street Fighter, they went straight to online and VOD because they've got a 22 million fan base. They loved it because it was made, very specific to them. It really embraced the original game, and that was exciting for them. And they're already planning the sequels, I think.
Can you tell us about yourself, please?
My name is Aymeric Contat Desfontaines. I am the managing director of Alright Entertainment, and we are international sales based in Hong Kong, and we have office in LA and Paris. And we want also to develop more the co-production between US and China. And that's why we just opened office in LA recently. And I think Dragon Nest is really a good example of a Hollywood and China production. And we want to work more on this kind of project, mainly on animation, because we want to. It's more easy to co-produce with China and US, getting always China main share, and just bringing some script director, and other talents for the production.
Jake, how do you, in what you do, get money out of China that eventually comes to the United States? What are the mechanisms to do that?
There's a few. I mean, there's a lot of interest from China, obviously in America, and also in repatriating money and investing overseas. There's no two ways about it. We get a lot of requests at Plantation Village Studios for EB5 investors. That's quite regular.
Talk a little about.
So EB5 is an entrepreneur's visa. In fact, it gets a permanent residency.
It fast-tracks it.
Fast-tracks it, and a permanent residency for the investor and family, in fact. So it's very attractive. A lot of people see the States as a great place to retire, and the Chinese have a lot of dollars and a lot of wealth now. And it's a $1 million investment. It has to generate 10 jobs over at least a 2-year period. And actually, increasingly, we're talking to people and saying, well, okay, you were traditionally doing this in regular businesses, which may or may make not a profit, but actually in film and animation specifically, you're generating a huge amount of jobs, and they go on for a long time. And in fact, if you're delivering the picture and posting the picture and developing the picture, they're easily extending past 2 years. And if we're going to do something serious, we're going to do it more than once anyway. So it's a legitimate, great tool for investors, but also for job creation. And then when you combine that with a domicile like Louisiana, where you're getting 30 cents on the dollar, 35 cents on the dollar for locals, but 30 cents on the dollar for anyone, it's suddenly really interesting.
So you become local, and they're now 35%.
And then they suddenly become local, and they're 35% as well. And that's for everyone. That's for the above-the-line talent. That's for the animators. And you can fly them in from anywhere. So it makes a very powerful way of making movies. So those two things I'm seeing a lot of, which is using the tax structures we've got in America, including the 181s, which we grandfathered a lot of, to completely mitigate risk of any high net worth individual or LLC or corporate, and also just the tax credit being put onto things in order that we can combine. So we're finding requests to go 50-50 with people, to work with them in all sorts of ways.
And the second way is to get the money in to England, maybe, or through a bank.
The easiest is to use HSBC. The easiest to use HSBC in Hong Kong. They're strong, they're global, everyone trusts them, except all that stuff, with the drug money in Colombia or whatever it was. It's been forgotten. It was a headline for about a minute. Interesting. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, they trust them. The money's not going to go anywhere. There's obviously HSBCs in China. The head office has always been in the UK, and that's a historical thing. They didn't dare put it in Hong Kong because no one knew it was going to happen. But it's a strong global bank, so it's easy to move the money around.
See in the United States,
we do. Yeah.
It's a conduit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing that I've discovered in China, I grew up in Hong Kong, so I know the culture well and understand the way business works. But the original deals coming out of China were very poor because in China most things are 10 cents on the dollar. And so they'd say, yeah, we'll go 50% of a budget, but we want to spend our money here. Well, that trick's not going to work with any sophisticated investor. They're going to say, well, actually, put the money through HSBC, we'll both do it, we'll go pari passu, so that my money's going 10 cents on the dollar, and I'm not just carrying the expensive US above the line or producers or money in your pocket. Because if you're going to do that, then you need a much smaller chunk of equity because you're actually only investing a modest percent. So it's interesting, but I think the Chinese market is becoming increasingly good to deal with, and it's creating extraordinary product, and they have a lot of talent there above the line and very deep crews now and infrastructure.
Do you know anything about this EB5 vehicle, the fast track residency in the United States? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I have. I thought it was $500,000.
If it's in a low income or a rural area, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where we set up. So people always come to us.
Okay.
The United States government and about 84% of the people that have taken advantage of EB5 to come to the United States came from China, and still continue to come from China. So how is the landscape going to change? Is it going to stay the same for the two of you? You've been entrenched in China, you said, for 9 years in building the relationships and the culture. Do you plan to continue that and further it and have more of your business there than you currently have?
Well, I think in terms of business, we're kind of maxed out. We've raised the money. We're going to make movies. We could make co-productions too. But the interesting thing about China now is that there is money there and there's growth there, but the structure and the facilities have to grow too. So like we're kind of maxed out. We have a few hundred employees. We're kind of maxed out. I mean, how do you get bigger?
Tough life.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how do you get bigger? Well, animation uses a lot of people, And also what's wonderful is they're all like 19 years old. So
you get bigger by combining with other people. That's how you do it.
Yeah, but yeah, it depends on how you want to spend your money. I mean, it depends on how much control you want to put on it. How do you keep up the quality of your product? So in terms of us, we want to grow, but you can't grow your facility and your structure too big, because if you make a movie and you have 250 employees, and with animation you have animators and then people who do rendering and compositors and 3D people. If you don't keep that train moving, if all of a sudden you have 150 animators and storyboard artists and asset creators, and you don't have they have no work to do, and you have 150 people out of work, it hurts the company if you have that big overhead, even when those people are not really expensive. So we, as a company, that's what we have to be careful not to grow too big too fast, where we don't use the talent that we have on a yearly base and not on a monthly base. Normal production growing up in, you hire people for 3 months and let them go. We don't do that. Basically, we're putting people on contract by the year, and we have to be really careful how we
do for all VFX and CGI, and now for animation, we're taking the same model we used in VFX and CGI in Toronto, and now we're doing exactly the same thing with animation. It's the only way to make it sustainable and also keep the quality and not reinvent the wheel. It's so crazy to form a special purpose vehicle, hire up, crew up, try and do it, and then break it all down. It's a waste of energy.
Yeah. So what we do is we have, in working with Aymeric, we try to have a distribution goal, just like any studio. You say, okay, we're going to distribute here, here, and here. Then we have to back, because our projects all take 2 years to do, and then we can back into those projects and into those distribution dates and know that we have animators that work in this 6 months, and then we have storyboard artists that work in these 3 months, and hopefully line it all up so you can keep 2 or 3 projects going through. That's why co-production to us, we're really interested in, but we can't take on too many co-productions because if we have to put on 100 people,
You can't.
we could, but then it's risky. You know, then what do you do with the 100 people? You know, in China, they don't like to fire people.
Right.
They don't like. Yeah, they don't like to.
Long term.
It's long term. They're considered family. I mean, there's always at our facility. There's always like mass lunches, and you go, are we really going to have another 4-hour lunch today with 100 people? Is that not true? I mean,
it is, and yet they'll work extraordinarily hard as well.
They work really hard.
Really hard, absolutely around the clock. The first film I shot in China, we brought across all US cast. It was a huge cast: DMX, Michael Madsen, Paul Savino, Monica Cruz, David Carradine. And they just got hit by a world of culture. They just couldn't believe it. DMX was at the height of his kind of hip-hop stardom, and you couldn't go anywhere. He'd had 6 multi-platinum albums. He was the first ever to do that and all the rest. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing his songs. And he just didn't know what to make of it. But the Chinese crew, sometimes they were working literally 23 hours straight, falling asleep as they worked and then come back up. But the quality was fantastic, and the work rate was unbelievable, and the deals were so good, and what we achieved there easily looked 9 or 10 times the budget, easily, and no one could believe it.
It's a producer's dream to work there, for some sense, because in China it's a little different in Hong Kong, but in China. You hire people on a 30-day, you hire by the month, not by the day. And in those 30 days, you have to give them 4 days off. But as a producer, you can decide which 4 days off.
Yeah.
So you can say, okay, we're going to work Monday through Friday, and if the weather's good on Saturday, we're going to work Saturday, and if the weather's good on Sunday, we're going to work Sunday. But if it looks like rain on Monday, we're going to take Monday off.
Yeah, it is an absolute dream. But it's funny, and lots of things have changed now, of course, and it has become more sophisticated. But I remember when we did the payroll at the end of each week, it was just acres of cash stacked up because the RMB is so weak, and it was just that's the only way you do it. Yeah, massive envelopes.
France, we have so many rules, so many strike,
and no one's allowed to work more than 22 hours or something.
Pretty flexible. They work during the night very late, and it's pretty good to have this flexibility, and that's why they are so fast.
And there's the talent base is so deep. I mean, on that, I think our DOP had just come off Shaolin Soccer, but he just knocked it out of the park. He was fantastic, and what was extraordinary for us was we doubled Chicago, New York, Macau, all sorts of things. And it looked like we'd flown all over the world. Well, that was in about 5 locations that were right nearby. And China has that vast and epic landscape.
We've been given a 5-minute call, so we have to wrap up. I'm very sorry for that, because we could talk about China for hours and hours and hours.
You can talk about anything for hours and hours.
Give final thoughts, please.
Sorry?
I give final thoughts about China, how you're going to...
I mean, I opened this office 6 years ago in Hong Kong, and there was China production was just starting. And now when I see our new production, like Dragon Nest, or we have, for example, Bonnie Bear, who just released in March and make 41 million box office. What we want today is we want to have 2 primary markets. Not only the US market will be primary, China market will be also the primary market. And that's why we want to co-produce with China and US, because we want these 2 markets will be huge, and we want to double our growth working this way.
Are there any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think China is the emerging market. I mean, where else can you make things for 1/10 of the price that you can anywhere else and have a market to 1.5 billion people?
That's true.
Was that a rhetorical question? I mean, it's an exciting time, and actually, as I said at the beginning, at the studios, we're getting regular requests for Chinese investment and to combine with Chinese, because we can get very close in terms of cost, because the cost of living in Louisiana is low, and we get a huge tax credit, and there's so much money because of all the oil and the gas. So Yeah, it's interesting.
And my final thought is that if you're in the independent film business and you don't consider China at some point as a market and a place that you want to begin to develop friendships in line of this business, you're missing one of the greatest opportunities that you can have.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I think just one word. I think when we are changing the history of the Chinese cinema and movie like Dragon Eyes going to really makes everything change and get a new vision of the China movie industry. And because
we're not being parochial in China.
Well, yeah,
international.
but it's from my friends in China. They don't want to do any more kung fu movies.
You don't want to have this etiquette.
Right.
Which is only for kung fu. When you say Chinese movie, it's only kung fu movie.
Yeah, but
and
it's
you
actually
want to
not
change
even
that.
just about animation or just about Chinese product. You know, look at the re-release of Titanic when they released in 3D. It was, one of the biggest box office of all time anywhere in its opening weekend. I mean, and now there is a way to get that money into the pocket of the person it's supposed to be. For a long time, the worry in China was you couldn't, but now, the big talent agencies have offices there. People are playing the game properly. Apparently, you still pay in cash, but that before you didn't think you could even sell to China, and even if you did, you didn't think you'd get any overages. But that's changing a lot.
I thank all of you. I want to also again thank Black Hangar Productions, Plantation Village Studios. I want to thank Octopus for also co-sponsoring this, and thank you all for coming.